Hello and welcome, everybody. I've got something very special today. We're going to take a look at Dell Apex. We're going to take a look at the console. We're going to go inside the bowels of everything that is Apex. And I'm here with Richmond from Dell. He is the product manager for Apex, and he's been there since the beginning. He knows how this has evolved. And the first thing that's on my mind is, wait a minute, Dell makes server hardware. This Apex is the cloud. Or actually, when you were explaining it to me, it's really where the cloud meets your on-prem infrastructure. What if you could manage everything from one place? But it's the cloud, not physical hardware. What's Dell doing with this? I don't know. You're gonna have to straighten me out. I'm all mixed up.
Yeah, so Wendell, appreciate you having me on. So that was definitely, Apex is a new initiative for us. And when I joined Dell just under 3 years ago, that was simply the exact pitch that I received. Hey, join Dell, join Apex. We're doing things with the cloud, and we're evolving that strategy. And that's, I thought, hey, the Dell cloud, don't they do PCs? Don't they do monitors and things like that? But just to come that's exactly what the focus was, and where we've kind of gone from the beginning to evolving Apex to where it is now.
It's a really interesting situation, because I'm thinking about this, because I've ordered a cloud thing in my day, a time or two, and I'm sitting here and I bang at my keyboard. It's like, web server needs more resources. Click, click, click. They've got my credit card. Web server has more resources. I'm thinking about contrasting that with Dell. And it's like, okay, I have to spec out a server and configure this. Oh crap, did I forget the RAID controller? I have to go back and figure that out. I could see why Dell getting involved here in terms of procurement would make a lot of sense. But it's not just procurement. It's also integrating everything so that I can manage it from one place, which I think is the interesting part.
Yeah, looking at it from a purely end-to-end perspective, when you think day zero, day one, day two, the entire customer experience, that's kind of what it's all about. How do we simplify? How do we provide this seamless experience for the customers, starting from, as you mentioned, trying to procure infrastructure? So you've seen the public cloud. We know that they've been around for over a decade, and they're very established. And it's like, hey, yep, point and click. I need to deploy an instance and get that deployed in minutes. Now you think with on-prem infrastructure, traditionally, there's a lot more manual touch points with that. Having to reach out, get a quote, wait for a reply, size things, making sure that you have the right infrastructure. There are those components of the public cloud that we want to bring into the on-prem side, which that's Dell's bread and butter, the infrastructure. They know that well. That's where our strength is. But as the as sort of expectations from the customer have changed, where we're used to getting things on demand, a self-service way of doing things. We're now focused on bringing that into what we already know. So transforming our infrastructure portfolio into a more radically simplified portfolio of cloud as a service solutions, which comes with the experience itself, is essentially the core of what Apex is trying to bring to the table.
So if I'm managing some infrastructure, and I've got some on-prem infrastructure and I've got my cloud infrastructure, let's say that I'm doing something, with VDI, virtual desktop infrastructure, my users that are, in or near the data center or in the building, they can definitely feel it when we move to the cloud, and things are a lot more expensive. That owned infrastructure, can be a lot more cost competitive and a lot more performance. But I hear you when you say touch points. I don't want to babysit that server. When it goes down at 3 o'clock in the morning, the IT team or my team or somebody like that is on call to deal with that. But in what you just said, it sounds like Apex is going to sort of give me the tool that I need to manage replication and failover and backups for, on-prem as well as the cloud, so that it's pretty seamless. There's not really a difference other than, well, okay, this server's physically at your location, but it's still managed with the same cloud tools.
Yes, especially in this day and age, we've talked to a lot of customers where, with the increasing competitive pressures, where you need to be able to deliver your services, your resources, innovate faster. A lot of companies starting to get to that point where, all right, what are certain things that we can offload, such as the IT operations, which can be a very tedious, time-consuming, labor-intensive type of situation, to yeah, a company like Dell, where now you could kind of reposition and or refocus that labor that you'd otherwise have into something that is a little bit more important that will actually drive your business value and things like that. And so in those types of situations, then yeah, your customers will start to look at, hey, how can I make it an as a service? How can I consume this in more of an OpEx way as opposed to a large capital expenditure and having to hire more IT operations people to manage each and every aspect to make sure that things are secure and running well and operational and things like that.
So in our hypothetical VDI scenario, I don't necessarily even have to size and specify it and then submit that to Dell and deal with all of that insanity. I can just say, hey, I've got 25 users. They need this capability. Dell, you need to figure it out. And then they can provide that in the Apex ecosystem, which may include on-prem hardware as well as the cloud.
Even when we had first started Apex, our first iteration of the console was, hey, what type of infrastructure do you need? And it would just be this decoder ring, a one M1DF XL and their quantity. And so to a lot of people, it was just, well, what does that mean? Yeah, exactly. So that's where the console comes in, is how do we abstract that? How do we help customers, how do we help users focus on more of the outcomes? Like, yeah, I need VDI. Give me the infrastructure or whatever is necessary to be able to run what my outcome is, whether it is VDI. Let us handle, let Dell handle that. Let me just give you my outcome specifications and go and deploy it. And there you go. Let me run it.
On, bigger picture, I'm thinking about this now in terms of software-defined infrastructure. As a business, as someone leading an IT group, it's a lot more attractive if I can create a definition for what my requirements are, as you say, and submit that. And it's like, here is the things that I need for my infrastructure. My block storage is over here. My VDI is over here. This is the specification. This is how it's all put together. In disaster recovery scenarios, or, even, what historically would have been a bare metal recovery scenario, having that specification is better than documenting your infrastructure. I mean, it's sort of living documentation for your infrastructure, because if you need to recreate it, we can just resubmit that, and then from that specification, new infrastructure will be built, which is exactly the same as the old infrastructure. So it sounds like with the plan with Apex, that I can work with Dell to put a plan together, and then Dell's basically responsible for executing, and we can agree on what's going to be on-prem and what's going to be off-prem and that kind of thing. But that sort of reminded me of one of the case studies that I saw. I'm going to put a link to that below, but some of the case studies from this, there's significant cost savings from this as well, because sometimes you don't need as much on-prem infrastructure as you think, or Dell's cloud solutions here are pretty competitive with what's in the marketplace.
Yeah, we do have a lot of case studies that we can point to. And yeah, it's all been around how do we reduce TTV? How do we help our customers be able to achieve the outcomes that they want in a quickly, efficient manner, and get things stand up as quickly as possible. So
I'm definitely a big believer in the future of software-defined infrastructure, where I can sort of put my plan together and even manage that in version control. It's like, oh, we need an extra machine for a new hire. Let me just add a line to this, commit it to the repository, submit that to Dell, and then it's like, oh, look, Bob's got a login. He got his, he can go pick that up. It's fine. I love that level of automation, and I also love not being responsible for the execution of those kinds of things. But Apex Console, it's where the rubber meets the road. Can we take a deeper look at Apex Console?
Yeah, so I'm currently logged into the Apex console right now. I'm just using a demo account. So let's say if I am a customer, I get onboarded to the Apex console, so I'm an administrator, then this is the view that I'll get. So it may start with, all right, in the beginning with Apex, I need to configure and subscribe to a specific Apex service. So if I click on the catalog, This will give me a list of the Apex services that I could subscribe to. This is something that's continually evolving. We're working on onboarding a lot more services. So over time, you're going to see this catalog grow with more and more offerings that you can actually subscribe to. So if we take one of the case studies that we have, where a customer wanted to deploy VDI on Apex Private Cloud, which is right here. This is VxRail on vSAN and vSphere. Then I can begin my configuration process just by clicking configure. So if I need to learn more about any of these services, obviously you click learn more, and you'll be able to see some of the details of what it is, the actual service that you're subscribing to.
Cool. So with the VxRail setup and on a VMware type platform, if I was already using VMware, it'd be pretty easy for me to add this to my existing infrastructure just in a few mouse clicks. It's not really the traditional, okay, I need to get the bare metal here, and then I've got to do the ESXi installation myself. It just sort of handles it.
Oh, absolutely. So once you configure the actual Apex Private Cloud or the Apex solution that you want, then everything's going to be racked and stacked, ready to go and deployed into your data center. And that's a good thing to note is that with Apex, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel or redo anything that already works. So we've had a lot of situations where customers, they're already very used to VMware. They're very used to using vCenter. So it became a question of why are we going to build another console that will just do exactly what they do when they're already comfortable with it? How do we find a way to really seamlessly integrate and make sure that the people are able to find their way around?
I get what you're talking about earlier when you said procurement, because this is about procuring tried and true Dell hardware, VMware certified, ready to go for your solution right next to anything, any existing solution that you might have in the data center or private cloud. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So it just becomes a situation where, if I'm trying to subscribe to it, I want to make this as easy and intuitive experience as possible, bringing that self-service, being able to actually see the pricing and the configuration that I'm actually trying to deploy. So if we start out with configuring Apex Private Cloud, if I just start with, all right, order name, we'll just do, sample order. Not super creative with the names, unfortunately. Select the location. So in this case, it's just going to be in US. And then we start with the configuration. So, a little bit of history for you. When we had first started with the Apex console, our very, very first iteration was, all right, we want to try to bring the self-service aspect into our Apex solutions. So the screen actually, instead of showing instance type, it was just, hey, what type of nodes do you want and what quantity of nodes? And we just give you a big decoder ring of like 1M, 1D, XL, XL, S, small, whatever it might be. Pick it and, click continue.
I like this because you get into a situation where, oh, this isn't running correctly, and I call support, and it's like, hey, this is not delivering the experience that I wanted. And it's like, oh, you picked the M1, you wanted the M2 instance with the. It's like you take all of that out, which is nice.
Yeah, exactly. And so for me, for a lot of people that especially come from the cloud world, it's a lot of it is, hey, I need to be able to deploy infrastructure. I don't necessarily know the inner workings of the infrastructure, or let's say you're a developer, you're an engineer, you know how to code, you need to deploy apps, but you're not going to be an infrastructure expert. It's just, all right, how do I navigate this? Now I have to spend time learning exactly what I need to do when really my job is I want to get this deployed as quickly as possible. Let me focus on the outcomes. And that's essentially what we've done here. So very similar to the public cloud experience when you're configuring instances on AWS, it's typically, all right, well, what type of a workload are you trying to run? What is your outcome? So we'll start by giving just these these instances. So let's say I'm deploying a simple web server or something like that. I might choose general purpose. If it's something where it is VDI, I need a VDI solution, then I'll click VDI optimized. There's details to just show, hey, what are some of the example use cases for the workloads for me to pick. And so the idea here is that you'll pick that, let Dell, us, figure out the complexities, the infrastructure that is required to run those workloads under the hood. You just tell us what your outcome is and what it is that you're trying to achieve. And so in this case, we'll choose VDI optimized, and then select the number of instances of that. And so you can loosely kind of think of this as VMs, like how many VMs of this specific workload do I want to run? You know, in this case, yeah. So instance quantity. So I could select the slider, choose what I need. So let's say 256. Select my storage type, and then click continue.
Now, so as we put this together, if we were going to click on this and choose VDI and go through this and provision this, what actually happens? I mean, this is Apex private cloud, but presumably Dell has got to set this up in a data center, and I've got some vSAN storage. Looks like we're going to add. What's actually going to happen here? How does this break down in terms of hybrid or data center or customer data center? What's going on?
Yeah. So the core of Apex is we're taking our infrastructure products and turning that into more of an as a service OpEx consumption model as a starting point. So
I really do like that.
Exactly. And so the services that you saw in the catalog on the Apex console, these are all services that you could deploy to your existing data center. In the case of Apex Data Storage Services, we're now starting to provide that option where not only can you deploy it to your data center, but you can also deploy it to a co-location facility. So we partner up with Equinix, and we made that announcement previous Dell Tech World. And so we're starting to add a lot more deployment options. And as we, eventually kind of transition to become to creating more multi-cloud services. You spoke with Caitlin Gordon, you've seen the announcement of Project Alpine. So that's kind of how our services for Apex are just continually evolving.
Yeah, you don't have, as a company, you don't have to worry about that, $50, $100, $200,000 server expenditure. All of that gets amortized over the cost of over the life of the server. And Dell is sort of managing not just, the physical setup and physical deployment, but also, the warranty and something died and has to be dealt with and blah, blah, blah. And it's all done through the Apex console. So it seems like that simplifies a lot of the management as well.
Right. So yeah, so still, if these are the workloads that you need to keep on-prem for whatever reason, whether it's data governance or mission critical workloads that you just can't bring to the public cloud, then you're still able to leverage Apex, but still leverage all of the consumption models that you would want, that OpEx, that subscription. Also make sure that you have all of the value added services like deployment, making sure that, if you don't want to worry about the infrastructure and want to have us monitor and take care of it for you, then, that's kind of the value that Apex will bring onto what Dell is already known for with their data center infrastructure.
Now, for Dell's data center infrastructure and anything that I don't require to be in my own private cloud or on premise or anything like that, how does Apex affect rapid deployment? If I have a critical need, or I have a business need, or whatever, I'm thinking I go to the Dell website and I spec those servers out. There's going to be some lead time, whereas other services in the cloud, I can just hit a few buttons and then, oh, look at that, I've got another ESXi host, or oh, I've got another instance. But Apex gives me that too.
Yeah, it's definitely it's much closer to it. I mean, when you're dealing with on-prem infrastructure where it's still things need to get shipped and set up, it's just not going to be the same as something where you are deploying services in the public cloud, where you really just don't have to deal with it. But then that's where you start bridging the gap with co-location, where we can actually have this infrastructure ready to go and start to reduce that time to value and that lead time. I guess with Apex, our first focus was with on-prem, with true private cloud. How do we make that deployment and the management and the consumption of it as efficient as possible, try to reduce that time to value. I mean, when we talk to customers, initially it's like, hey, my lead time of getting things set up and racked and stacked and ready to go is at least 3 months. So first it's all right, how do we cut that 3 months down into under 14 days? And that was the first iteration of Apex to get, yep, we can get everything all deployed on-prem, all racked and stacked, ready to go, operating your data center in under 14 days. And so that those are the types of focus areas, before jumping to public cloud, if you will.
I like the integration also because a lot of the winning strategy, it seems like, is a combination of edge compute or on-premise compute, or at least where I see it going in the future is that companies will have some on-prem, some edge compute, maybe caching logins or caching frequently used files, so some type of thing. But then you don't want to turn it into a liability. You want the same management, you want the same critical care, I guess, for lack of a better way of describing it. But this can sort of bring all of that together under one umbrella, and that's sort of the vision for the future, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that is such a big, a huge complexity that a lot of companies have to deal with, right? It just, yeah, you're not gonna, workloads are gonna be disparate. You are gonna have workloads that are in the public cloud. You're gonna have things that are running in edge locations for specific industries in your on-prem. And I don't think that's really gonna be going away anytime soon. But yeah, as a result of that, you just have a lot of these complexities to have to deal with, different environments, vendor lock-in, and the idea is, I guess before the narrative was always, hey, everything, you should move everything to the public cloud, or you should repatriate and move everything back to on-prem. And now that argument is gone. It's like, all right, the fact that you do have things that are running in different cloud environments, how do you build something that makes it easier to manage all of that in a unified way?
It's a very laudable and ambitious goal for Apex, but I like it. I mean, I like to be able to just define my infrastructure, and then eventually it's got to turn into a commodities market, right? Everybody is going to, look at that and say, oh, this is the best way to do this. And they're going to leverage their infrastructure, in Dell's case, building physical infrastructure, building the machines and building, all of the stuff, but also providing you with the advantages of the cloud, not the least of which is the cost model, because nobody wants to pay for servers.
No, yeah, no, absolutely. And have very good experience with public cloud, and there are a lot of challenges when it comes to predicting costs and trying to mix that with CapEx, trying to just imagine the accounting, dealing with those is very tough. And so at least this Apex gives that step to say, all right, let's kind of make the expenses on the same books where it is OpEx, where you don't have to invest huge capital expenditure to do hardware refreshes or add infrastructure that you need.
So we've got our stuff set up and things have been going pretty good, but from a day to day, how does this take shape? I'm running the services, I'm adding my VDI users, I'm adding my storage. I'm starting to run a little high on the number of IO operations that it's heading for vSAN. How do we manage that? How do we monitor that? I'll confess I looked at some of the documentation for Apex and some of it looked really impressive. What you're doing for metrics. Can we talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so there's two components to it. So first, as you mentioned, we've just set up all of the Apex services and it's all running in your data center. And now that that's running, within the console, you can view those active subscriptions that you have deployed. You can start to view all the details of those subscriptions, the usage, how much storage has been consumed. You could click into Cloud IQ, which we have that's provided for you, where if you need to look at capacity forecasting and monitor do any anomaly detection or any details, that we give you the tools to be able to do that. At the same time, with Apex, we do provide you with a customer success manager who's just proactive, constantly going to be monitoring usage patterns and things like that. Obviously not your data, but just the way that you've been consuming storage. So if there's situations where it looks like you're running out of storage, you need to add more capacity. then we'll make sure that we proactively tell you that ahead of time. We can also make sure that we ship enough infrastructure so that you do have that on hand if you are consuming it. So we try to cover all bases there to make sure that the services that you have is running, and you just have everything that you need without any delay.
Certainly the folks in our community are overworked, and knowing that somebody is keeping an eye on those kind of metrics and will proactively say, hey, maybe when we're up for renewal, we might ought to order more storage capacity, or we're going to need more IOPS, or we're going to need more front-end servers. That's actually kind of a nice thing to have, so you can plan accordingly.
Yeah, exactly. Where you just buy what you need for that time. I mean, gone are the days where you have to size and over provision for 5 years in advance and just in anticipation that you may need to use that in the future. Now with Apex, it's as close to cloud as you can get, where it's just buy the infrastructure, the storage, and the capacity that you need for right now, because you can easily add more as you go and with a click of a button as you need it.
So we're taking a look at the cloud stuff that we have going on here, and then we talk about it in the context of on-premise infrastructure. But looking through the case studies and some of the other material for Apex, it looks like that Apex really addresses needs, no matter if you're cloud nothing or public cloud everything. Apex actually has something to offer for everybody, no matter where you are with figuring out that whole cloud thing inside your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact that you're able to procure the infrastructure that you need in an OpEx, in a subscription manner, just allows you to sort of, depending on the size, whether it's a dev workload solution that you need to be able to stand up and just need something small, versus something where you need to bring a big workload on-prem. The Apex definitely has a solution for everyone.
Now, Apex had their last blog post was a multi-cloud blog, and it talked about using Apex in conjunction with other cloud resources, and that realized the net savings for the customer, which is huge, but also kind of a dramatic reduction in complexity. And that's the reduction in complexity, eventual infrastructure as a service, managing those kind of things. Those are the things that really, really excite me in looking at this.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't put a price on resources that you could free up to be able to actually focus on your business outcomes and objectives for your customers. And so that's kind of the thing with Apex, is we understand that workloads, they exist everywhere. It's not a debate between private, public, cloud. It's just how do you, knowing that you do have these workloads that exist everywhere, how do you make sure that you provide that consistent experience and reduce that management complexity and disparate environments.
I remember the first time that I set up a couple of virtual machines, like virtual servers, to do some tasks. It was great. I was so excited. It's like, this is amazing. This is the future. And then later it's like, oh, I have to do this like 200 more times. It's like, that's not fun. Nobody ever said that was fun. But if you automate it and you build your infrastructure and you have something like, the Apex console is sort of the initial cornerstone for your building blocks to put all this together, then that sort of changes the game a little bit. It's maybe a little bit exciting that you have 100 things that you have to deal with again.
Yeah, and that's the exciting part of where we're at. You hinted at certain things that we're working on for some future releases, where we really delve deeper into the automation experience and really provide a solid day two management experience for our customers. And that's going to be bringing in a lot of these concepts, infrastructure as code, APIs. And so I would say stay tuned. There's definitely more to come. We've only just scratched the surface.
Well, if you can't stay tuned, you can right now today get a demo of the Apex console. I've got a link for that below, as well as the blog posts and everything that goes with that. So if you want to check out Apex console and you think it might be right for your enterprise, definitely click those links and check it out. And thank you again, Richmond, for joining me. It's most appreciated. Wow, you've been there since the beginning. You've seen it all. It's awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate you having me, Wendell.